Hello, everyone. This is Dan Riley for Sports Talk on Passionate World Internet Radio. Last week, I covered the 1980 U.S. hockey team's illogical win against the Soviets that gave the United States hope. This week, I'm covering something a little different, the ball through Buckner's legs in 1986. True, the Sox have won a couple World Series, but people under 25 need to understand what a joke the Sox were until this century came along. In the late 1910s, the Red Sox traded away Babe Ruth. Yes, that Babe Ruth. In 1986, the Sox appeared ready to make history. Early in that game, where Buckner wound up making his infamous gaffe, the Sox took what appeared to be a comfortable lead. Red Sox fans crossed their fingers, hoping Boston could keep that lead. Beantown had suffered for far too long. Unfortunately, the Sox fell apart. The New York Mets offense caught fire, driving in run after run after run until the game was tied late in the contest. Then, with a man on second, a ground ball was hit right to Bill Buckner, the Sox first baseman. The unthinkable happened. The ball rolled right through his legs when he reached down to grab the ball with his gloved hand. The runner on second scored the winning run, and the Sox were forced to play another game, which they also lost. Look, it's easy to blame Buckner, but try everyone on that roster. Blowing a lead takes more than one error. Look, teams that consistently lose a lot of baseball games start to get in a mental funk, one mistake after another. That was the Red Sox for decades before Curt Schilling. Babe Ruth going to New York didn't help. But that doesn't give you the right to blame it for Boston. That night was an example of a house of cards falling. Something that had happened for the Sox way too often. That's obvious. It doesn't excuse pinning all the blame on Buckner. That's a cop-out, kind of like when Cubs fans blame Steve Bartman. When a team starts making one mistake in a game after another, and has a history of losing, of course guys are going to lose focus. They expect one muff ground ball or crucial strikeout. They wind up making mistakes like when Buckner didn't put his glove all the way down to the ground. Heck, I've heard Buckner had bad legs and couldn't have been able to tag first base if he did get that ground ball. This was an example of a manager starting the wrong guy at first base and expecting things to work out anyway. That's who needs to be held accountable, period. The coaching staff and management. The Sox have won a couple World Series since. It's time to hold the people accountable who really ruined Boston's chances at a World Series sooner, back in 1986. Management and the guys on that field who couldn't give Buckner some help in winning that game. So much for baseball being a team game. Come on. One ground ball didn't ruin Boston's chances that year. The Red Sox did. That's simple. Sometimes it's just a simple failure to grasp small fundamental truths that cost teams games, not the economic disparities in baseball themselves. The night the ball went through Buckner's legs is a prime example of that. That error is why guys nowadays really make sure to drop their glove all the way down to the ground fielding a ground ball. It's why sports fans blame stupid curses instead of the people in charge of their teams. It's the night that may have ruined Bill Buckner's career, even though it shouldn't have been. It's why we actually have kids studying sports psychology in college when they want to be a therapist. They want to work with athletes, and they understand one mistake can ruin a team's focus or players' careers, like what happened with Bill Buckner. Overnight, management and sports writers in Boston fell in love with playing the blame game and trashing Buckner. Wrong answer. Everyone on that field that night in a Red Sox uniform deserved a wag of the finger. It takes 9 guys to blow a World Series. Ask any manager who ever lost one because his team couldn't execute. On this podcast, one time I took historians to task for being so quick to blame Ernest Buckner for the NFL's Browns blowing a chance to go to a Super Bowl back in the 80s. It's time to re-examine a certain night in Boston in the same way. As a whole, the entire Boston Red Sox roster lost that series, not just Bill Buckner. Decades later, Beantown needs to forgive him. He had 2 bad legs and may have been put in that spot by his teammates' own screw-ups. Let's let that sink in. Maybe even the Red Sox manager made a mistake putting him in that night. Going forward, Buckner needs to be re-examined. Was he not given enough credit to field that ball, given he got in front of it? Was he given too much credit, to field that ball, given he got in front of it with bad legs? Should he even have been in the lineup at all that night? Was this really, for that matter, a choke job, or the Mets not getting enough credit for driving in a winning run towards the side of the diamond where a fielder had bad legs? You get the idea. Bill Buckner is part of a storied ball club right up there with the Yankees in terms of success. That team's own mistakes put Buckner in a position where he wound up the sacrificial lamb for an entire city. That attitude needs to change in Boston, because a few World Series championships is enough reason for the state of Massachusetts to let bygones be bygones. This is Dan Riley for Sports Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in, and so long.